I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Welcome to another episode of the Flatlander Kennels Podcast with Chris Jobman. Today we're going to be talking about the upcoming Grand and preparation for the Grand. We've got a star-studded lineup of guests. We've never had this many people on here, so I'm going to kick it over to Chris and let him introduce our guests for tonight, and then they are going to talk all things Spring Grand. Chris, take it away.
Hey, thanks for joining. It's a very special episode. I got some of the favorite people in the whole wide world on with me. I got Chris Akin from Webfooted. We're gonna introduce people from starting with the tallest to the shortest. So we got Chris Akin, Webfooted Kennels out of Jonesboro, Arkansas. Rhett Riddle, Bay Creek Kennels out of Hartsville, South Carolina, and Eric Teson out of Habitat Flats Kennels out of Missouri. So thanks guys for joining us. We're gonna talk everything Grand, pre-training for the Grand, at the Grand. This is gonna be an episode of just. I'm going to be talking over each other a lot and be a little bit hectic, but it's gonna be fun.
Well, I want to know how many Grand passes we have on this feed right now, approximately
350 plus.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable. How long have each of you been running the Grand? Let's start with Chris Akin. How long have you been running the Grand?
I think my first one was in 94, 93.
A long time.
Yeah.
Rhett?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about that. I'll give you a kind of a highlight reel. That was in the early 90s, 1993. There was like less than 100 dogs. If I remember right, it was like 89 dogs. They passed 19 of them. It was in Wren Lake, Illinois. And it was extremely tough. I had a lot of quads. They threw quads, and dog A would pick up one bird, and you had to pick up the other three and run a blind. They had live pigeons in it. That's back when we threw all pigeons on land and ducks in the water. So that added a super degree of difficulty. During some of that time, the Grand, the third series was the upland instead of the fifth. So you did a land water, a upland, and then a land water. It's all out of whack. And it was extremely difficult. I don't know that it would be difficult in today's world with the dogs we run today to handle the testing, but just the order and pigeons versus ducks. I mean, there was a lot of things that were very difficult about it back then for sure. I think I missed one, if not two, Grands since then.
Do you know how many Grand passes that you've had in that time? Do you track it?
I don't know. I don't keep up with my passes. I wish I did, but I don't. Right. I've got in the high 80s in Grand Champions, but I've got dozens that only had one pass and went home, or passed away and just never received a second pass. So dozens of those. So I'm going to say between 125 and 150 passes.
And over 80 Grand Champions.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
That's fantastic.
Chris, you got to have over 200 Grand passes by yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep this real, but I would think that number's probably right. I mean, I'm coming into this Grand, I think, with 12 that have one pass. So, yeah, you're probably right. It probably is over 200.
You got over 200 because I've got 185 probably.
Yeah.
Or not that many, but so yeah, you're high 80s. You've got over 200. I got 57 Grand Champions. I'm probably 100. I'm guessing 125 to 130. Probably Grand passes because dogs that have one pass. So right. I'm guessing this group has well over. I'll bet you we have 400 plus Grand passes in this group.
Wow.
Yeah, Christian, I'm thinking of dogs that just had one pass and didn't come back. But we got several dogs that have multiple Grand passes. I mean, like it's got ammo with 10. We got Boomer had 9, Delta had 8. I mean, Oh, wait.
I mean, O'Malley had 8. Chet had 9. I mean, Flash got 8. I mean, we got all them dogs. I mean, there's 450 plus passes.
Yeah.
Rhett, when did you start running the Grand? How many years have you been involved in that event?
I ran my first one in 2008, and I didn't run another one until 2019 when we all started back training together again.
So 2008 is when you met Chris and I.
Correct. Yeah. And then I started back running it. How many every years later? 11 years later. And I've run every one since then. I haven't missed one since 2019.
Eric, what year was it? And Rhett, how many grand dogs do you have then? You think grand passes?
Got 15 Grand Hunt Retriever champions now and 40 grand passes. About where we're at. Like Sonny's got the most. He's got 7. I got Greg and Reed have 4. A couple of them got 4.
Yeah, I hear puppies in the background, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Eric, I know you started with me, running your first Grand with me. How many Grand champions do you have now and passes you think you have?
I don't know. Right around 10. It wouldn't take me very long to count them, but I could do it. Hey, let's go back to 1993 when Chris Akin started around this. 1993, I was in 5th grade watching the Olympics for a project at school.
You're still in the same pants, too.
Thanks. I got the same shirt I had in 5th grade.
Tuskies.
It was either my last year or second to last year with you. So 18 or 19. It had to be 19 probably. And then I ran every one since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was probably, you didn't go to the one in Wisconsin, so it would have been it would have been 20 then. It was probably spring of 20. Or no, it had to have been fall of 20.
It wouldn't have been fall of 19. That's what I'm thinking.
No, because that was in Wisconsin and you didn't go to it.
Okay. Yep, I did. That was the last one I missed.
Yeah.
Chris, what year was the Grand in Bowie, Texas? 2003?
I
don't remember. I think it was my first one was in 2003, I think, and 57 Grand champions later and 100 and however 25, 30, 40, 50 passes. I don't even know, but Chris and I played
the numbers have gotten kind of skewed lately because for years and years you could only run 8 dogs.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so when you're running 8 dogs, and some of those dogs, were already grand champions and running those. So for a long time, people didn't have a whole lot of grand champions. They had a dozen or they had 10 or whatever. Well, then they changed the rule where you can run as many as you want. And so now, we're coming to the table with 20 dogs or 16 dogs or whatever the number is. And so now all of a sudden, with unlimited entries now, a lot more grand champions, a lot more grand passes are happening because we're carrying the B team and the C team. And let's face it, a lot of those B and C team are the ones that are passing. I mean, we've all had that happen, right? I mean, dogs, you would, if you're picking your top 8, all those top 8 may still be in the trailer on the 4th and 5th where those B teamers, young guys just came through and had a good week and pulled it off and passed and so it added to the mix for sure. But for years you couldn't run but 8 at a time.
Yeah, and I tell you, that's you and I, and we did lots of 5 and 6 out of 8s. I remember that back in the day, and I remember it was a lot harder to get on the Grand truck back in the day because then you had to, they just kind of had to wait their turn, and then very few of us had dogs that had multiple passes. Like you had Boomer, and I had O'Malley back in the day, and then Mr. Autry had like Cody, but very few of us had multiple grand champs because we were always trying to build the next one. It was a different deal back then.
Yeah, for sure.
And the pass rate was much different. Pass rate was what, 10, 15%?
I think 15 to 17% for years and years was a pretty accurate rate.
Yeah, that's about right. But it's been this. I think I was telling somebody the other day, Chris, this is our 19th year training together for every national event.
What?
That's insane.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But there he is. Eric's back. So yeah, we're getting ready to head. We're talking about any of the old stuff for a while, or do you want to get into kind of where we're going?
Well, I would like to hear. I think it would be interesting to know the preparation. Like let's say you've got a month out. I mean, at this point, we're 2 weeks out.
We got 2 weeks.
Let's say you're a month out from the Grand. What does the preparation look like from a month out until you shoot your first dog off on the line?
Well, if you're starting Grand preparation a month out, you're in trouble.
Well, start as far back as you want, but I mean, we can't talk forever about preparation. So,
I quit. I sit down. When I get started, I train for it all the time, and we all do. But I start sitting on a chair and shooting a gun or using a wooden gun. That's my biggest. And I try to go to all wingers. If I'm preparing for the Grand, I try. And I hate wingers, but we try to go to all wingers. That's what they're going to see. So. That's the main thing. Chris, what do you got going on for that?
Well, I think the hardest thing to that is adding that we do a little bit of it all the time. We had the gun, we had the duck call, had the wingers, but the hardest thing for us, Elliot, I've been running AKC all spring. This last weekend made 11 weekends in a row for me running tests, and I've been running UKC and AKC, but I've mainly been running AKC. So I've been preparing these dogs for master tests and getting them ready, and I've got 26 qualified now. But that's been my main focus. So the water work looks different. The guns are in the field. The distances are a little different. The complexity is a little different. It doesn't look granny. So to tell you the truth, I've just been training dogs. I really hadn't been doing a lot of Grand prep. We've been using, the last couple of weeks, we've been using wingers. We've been using a duck call, the shotgun over their head. We're putting out a lot more silhouettes in the spread, getting ready for, the way they do it HRC versus AKC. But besides that, we really hadn't done a whole lot different. We just been training dogs and trying to get through all these master tests. And so I may be in a little bit of trouble because I hadn't done as much. But, HRC test definitely looks different than a master test. Like one thing I hadn't done even yet, and I need to do it tomorrow. I'm going to make myself do it. All my birds are in the pond, out of the pond, and up the hill. Yeah. And man, at HRC, those birds are in the water, they're on the bank's edge, all that stuff, and that will catch you, man, it'll burn you down.
You're exactly
and
right.
I hadn't been doing that, and I tell you, I got to do it. This last weekend, I ran an HRC test, and they threw everything within 2 foot of the bank's edge. And, all mine want to get out and run 100 yards. And, man, it's just, it'll get you because you realize you can only handle on one mark in the Grand, so you don't have a lot of uh-ohs in there.
Yeah, one mark to the bird, yeah. That's what we're doing tomorrow, too. We're throwing everything in the water, on the edge, in the weeds, as much as we can. Because I'm like you. I run a lot of AKC-type setups where I throw everything on the land. Rhett, what have you been doing? We're going by height, by the way. So, Eric, we're just going by height. We're just going down the list.
Remember, I sent you that video the other day. I had that.
I feel bullied.
That mark that came in, like angled
Sorry,
in.
That was probably
landed.
bullying. My bad.
Are you listening to me?
Yes, I am. Hey, are you bullying me? Quit bullying me, Rhett.
I mean,
I'm
you're
feeling
the one
very
that asked
triggered
the
right now.
question. All right, you gotta talk to me.
I'm feeling very
All right.
triggered.
Remember, I sent you that video the other day of that bird angled in, like landing on the front of the shore, and you're like, huh, that's interesting. That makes no sense. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't. I know it makes zero sense, but they threw it the other day in a test, and I had to handle like 9 out of 10 dogs on it. So I figured maybe I should come throw it back in training or something. But that's the thing. I mean, so much stuff that we get is so contrary to training. You can't train for everything. We just go out there and you got to train the dogs. It's more than anything has been just the routine of it. Having all the stuff out and walking to the line at heel to the banded chair and having wingers out and having a lot of decoys and having the tent out, all the fun stuff that you gotta put in there for those couple weeks.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing too. We've been putting up decoys. Now we're not putting up the Teson spread, but we are putting up some decoys.
No, but
look how happy he is.
I am happy. I love it.
Yeah, it's something. It is.
Eric is he's probably the most prepared of the group because he is so into this Grand. He actually went up to Bong last weekend to recon for us. So he actually ran a test up there. Eric, what have you been doing?
Running test. There's no training. It's just
Yeah.
running test. I did go up to Bong, and it looks very grandy up there. It's going to be tough. Plain and simple, every grand is. But yeah, I've been running a lot of AKC, trying to get some of those dogs qualified, or at least get passes on them, so I can switch over, run the Grand, and then get back on the qualification thing before the end of July, and then flip over and run some more HRC. So I'm just in that portion of my year. I'm kind of like you, Chris, Jobman. We kind of start our years a lot later than these guys in the South, so we got to really cram the master test in about 3 months is all normally I use. But
yeah. Yeah, so I've been, like you said, Chris Akin. We're getting ready to throw birds in the water and use wingers. We've been using wingers and all the fun stuff, but I don't shoot a lot over my dogs. I use a wooden gun at the line. I don't do a lot of shooting over them. It's just it's hard to concentrate on line manners when you're actually shooting a gun, but I don't necessarily think
the gun's a pain in the butt, and sitting down. I mean, literally, because I do a lot of throw a mark, no off of it, run blind, come back, throw another mark. And you can literally, if you do like me with 26 dogs and you do that, you get end up out of that chair 125, 150 times a day. That's a lot. I mean, it gets old, getting up and down, up, down, up, down, up, down all day long. And it's just a whole lot easier to stand over them and run them like we do when we're getting ready for AKC.
Yeah, well, that's the thing at the Grand. You don't have to sit down and run your dog either. I mean, you could actually stand up to do it, but yeah, most people don't know that, but you can. But,
have you ever seen that done?
We did it in an HRC test a couple weeks ago. We stood up over them.
I've never seen one person stand up and do it.
You can do it. We had some dogs. Well, I take that back. Tanner didn't do it. Yeah, Tanner did it in the season a little bit. Eric Fryer did it because he's an AKC guy, but they just stood up at the HRC test and shot the gun that way. There's no rule that says you have to sit down. That's a fact.
We asked them at the Grand last time, and they told us we did have to sit down at the Grand.
Well, it's another one of them rules that.
I've been willing to bet you that's right, Rhett, because I've never seen one person stand up. And you can't tell me there wouldn't be somebody wanting to do that.
I'd do it at weekend tests with certain dogs a good bit, but
I don't know what the problem would be to stand up.
I mean, you can stand up to send them.
Yeah, but I don't know why couldn't you stand up to shoot the gun? It's not a rule. I mean, if that's the way the dog's more comfortable, the more I was more comfortable.
Yeah,
90% of the ducks I shoot, I'm standing up.
Yeah, well, you shoot better shooting standing up.
Exactly. So, but I think that some of that. Let's talk about pre-training and what I think people need to do for pre-training. I think a lot of times the group matters a ton. Like get with the right group, simulate a test. Because basically, that's what we're doing, guys. We're just getting up there to hang out and have a good time with everybody. But we're up there just to get in the group setting, and have all the trucks and the trailers and holding blinds and walking from holding blind to holding blind and doing all the mechanics. I think the mechanics are the most important thing for pre-training the week before, because if you're trying to hammer on your dogs to get them to learn something a week before the Grand, you're in deep trouble.
I mean, it's the same thing right now. I mean, like you said earlier, the training has been, for months. All I'm worried about now is running some setups and them having some success, but is more or less just getting into the routine of getting off the truck, walking to the line, doing all the little stuff at this point.
I'm trying to peak my guys. I don't know if I'm doing it right or doing it wrong, but I've ran some pretty difficult stuff up until now, and then I think I'm going to start backing it off a little bit, so they can kind of come in loose and confident. Chris or Eric, are you doing? What are you guys doing for trying to peak them? Does anybody actually try to peak them, or what? I try to do that. I don't know if it works or doesn't work.
Go ahead, Chris.
I seem like I think I do that every time for I get in my 2 month out routine, And for a month, I'm nitpicking everything, and I'm really demanding the cast, really demanding the whistle sets. Good deal. I'm worried about getting to the line. I'm worried about, line manners. And then the last month, I kind of back off of them and really ease up. But it always seems like then I get to the pre-training, and then I end up right back in them again a little more than I really want to be. And but we're definitely, I tell you, it's been such a struggle for me because I've been running so much. I mean,
you've been running.
We're running and gunning. I mean, I could really get in trouble at this Grand because we've just run so much, and I don't know that I can, get all those dogs back, to perfect line manners and all that. Did you turn that light out, baby, right there? All that. I'll get everything perfect at the line and walking the line, all that, because these dogs have just run so much.
Yeah, 11 weekends in a row that's incredible. That's a lot.
I'm tired. And that's another thing. I'm 11 weekends deep in this deal, and here we are. I'm actually going to have my first weekend off coming up. Of course, I'm just getting packing and getting ready to go because we leave on Monday morning. Yeah. And but man, that's a bad event to go into mentally and physically tired, because that is the most mentally physical contest of any event I've ever run in my entire life. Y'all may say different, but when I get done with that thing, I am exhausted.
No, you're 100% right. It is when you're done with that thing, you're wiped out mentally.
No question.
I mean, Rhett's wiped out mentally after day one.
After pre-training.
I mean, it's just exhausting. I mean, you have to be there at 6 a.m, so we're having to air at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. You got to go make sure the dogs are right. You got to go get fuel, go get ice, get everything you need. Normally drive 30, 45 minutes to an hour away to get there. You get there at 6. They drag it out till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, trying to get as many dogs run as they can. And then, then you got to go back and fill it with water and get something to eat and feed the dogs, air the dogs. By the time you walk in the house, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And you got to do that 5 days in a row. And I'm just telling you, it's exhausting.
But that's what our pre-training is, too. We got so many dogs in our group. We start super early, get done late, and eat late, and go to bed and repeat.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks of
10, 12 days of mental and physical contest.
Yeah, for sure. Eric, what are you doing special to prepare?
How do you guys secure a place to do your training the week before? How do you figure out where that location is going to be, and do they provide it for you?
No. So Rhett is in charge of the housing. He's the one that bitches about it the most. And then I try to find I found the land for this one. A buddy of mine, Ryan Eder, up there. He found us the land, and we all kind of just, wherever it's at. One of us knows somebody in the area. Chris obviously knows almost everybody, and we leave the house up stuff to Rhett because he's the one that complains the most about dinners and restaurants and housing, and Goose has got to come in and Crown's got to come in, and it's a process. So we leave Rhett to do the house, and Chris and I and Eric.
He does a great job of getting housing, and he knows the local flavors on all the restaurants and all that. Not you go out and eat. He does. Somehow the rest of us don't. But we definitely, Rhett's definitely heads up most of the housing. Last 2 or 3 grands I've done it. Y'all did it this time. We just kind of share the duties on it, just with who we know and all that, and it works out really good. But it takes a small team of people to make this happen, because you can't have a pasture that's grown up waist high on a farm pond that's perfectly round and expect to get anything out of it for pre-training. You got to understand, we got trucks, trailers, everybody pulling, big trailers, goosenecks, chassis mounts. These are heavy rigs. They're hard on the ground. You got to have a lot of parking. You got to have somewhere that you can air over 100 dogs, every day. That's not easy to find that place. It's a hard task to get. And then, don't forget, we got to be, there's always an equipment issue, whether it be tires, transmissions, water pumps. We've had it all. We've had everything. And it's always a pain in the butt with somebody, with something. We're always wrenching on something, just keeping everybody going. And that adds to the mental stress of the whole deal as well.
Eric puts the gas nozzle on the diesel on Rhett's truck, and that's the greatest thing ever.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one.
But it's so Elliot, we just try to find grounds and we kind of know where the Grand is now a lot like the Mash National. It's out in the same places all the time. So every few years you're going back to the same place because there's very few places that can handle 1,000 dogs and trucks and trailers everywhere. So we kind of we're going back to I think Kentucky in the spring of next year or whatever. So we have the house there and we already know where we're going.
I got grounds there too. I got another guy on offer today. Yeah.
Right. See, that's how it works, Elliot, just like that. And we send out group texts like, what are we bringing? And Rhett always says, I'm bringing a Ranger and poppers. That's all I'm bringing. And he's literally, that's all I got. Well, we send out group texts and everybody says, what we bring, what we're bringing, and that's we just do it like that,
True story.
It's a true story. I got poppers and a Ranger, and that's basically all.
Nothing else.
Those are two important pieces over at, no doubt.
Yeah.
And if there's a Chick-fil-A within 50 miles, Rhett will find it.
You know that, no doubt.
That chicken's addicted. There's no doubt about that.
Or Waffle
But
House.
I think, the Grand has changed a lot since Chris and I started running this thing. And it's changed a lot even since Eric and Rhett have started running it. Now you can cast with your hat on blinds. I think it's a huge deal. It is a monster deal. I think they can see us so much better. And the Grand has changed hands. Tracy Stubbs in charge of it now, and he's got a bunch of really good guys in there that they do a really good job of keeping the test fair, and it's a well-oiled machine. It's crazy how well that thing's run.
It is.
Do you guys go in with the, and we'll start with Eric on this. He hadn't said anything for a while. Do you guys go in with an idea of, I want to pass certain number of dogs to feel like I'm happy with the results? Or what are your expectations
Perfect
going
question
in?
for Eric, because he always sits down at dinner and says, okay, how many dogs is everybody passing? And everybody says, yeah. And everybody says what they say, and they're like, no, you're not. You're going to pass 3. You're going to pass 4. You're going to pass. He does it every Grand.
You come up with that question.
No.
My answer to that question is I want to get one through, and then everyone after that I'm really, really happy with. I don't want to go home early. So I don't have this big extravagant crew of seasoned Grand dogs. So getting to the end is still a bonus for me. I like being there at the end. So
my personal number, Elliot, I like to pass. I want to do 50%.
That's great. That's
in my mind. That's my personal number. That's my personal number is
50%. That's a great number because the average nowadays is in the 20s, and so if you double that, you've really done something. But Elliot, here's something I want you to take away from this deal. So, in my mind, we all want to pass every one of them if we can. We know that's not reality. There's too many moving parts to this deal. But here's what I want all the owners to think about. Anybody that's willing to take your dog to the Grand, it says so much about your dog. I mean, if we're willing to put it on the truck, take it, let you spend this kind of money on entry fees and expense fees and all that, the dog's already won. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's such an accomplishment for the dog to go to this thing, participate in it, even if it goes out early or whatever. That trainer, that handler had enough confidence in that dog to go and want to stand in front of it, in front of his peers and God and everybody, and be there. So every dog that's here, all 1,000 of them, are badasses, and somebody saw something really special in your dog in order to come to this. There's going to be dogs. I've had one of the best dogs I've ever run that go out in the first series on the freaking Go Bird. I've had dogs that I didn't really think all that much of that we got talked into taking, that I said, hey, we'll do it, and them dudes never looked for a bird. We've all had that happen. I've seen this group right here take dogs that, man, they're just not that good and pass one right off the other. I've seen some of these guys have the best dogs that you can't, there's no way they can fail, and they go out in the first series. So there's no guarantees no matter what dog you got. There's no negative. If your dog goes out in the first series, the second series, there's nothing negative about it. One misconceived deal with the clients is they'll say, man, my dog didn't do very good in the Grand at all. He went out in the first. The next one said, hey, he did pretty good. He went out in the fourth. Well, understand that everybody else's first is somebody else's second. And that same test is somebody else's third. And that same test is somebody else's fourth. So if your dog went out in the first, who cares? That may have been the very toughest test there, okay? But if somebody else's fourth, although that dog may have been fourth, he's not as good or half as good as the dog that went out in the first. There's so many. We had one time this group right here, we were in Sherrall, and we had 94 dogs in one series, and it was a water test. And if I remember right, it was banded water, and the wind was blowing, and it was a bugger. And the judge was judging. She's a pain in the ass. And she turns around and runs this test, and we had 90 dogs. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. 90 dogs at handles. 90 of them.
We had. I remember we had the number I remember. We had 30. We ran 37 dogs before the first one did it.
Yeah, so 90 out of 94 handled. And I've heard her tell the other co-judge, these dogs just haven't been in the water very much, to prepare for this deal. And I said, Carol, we don't come to this event not having dogs in the water. These dogs are well prepared. Okay, now let's keep going. So the next day on Carol's test, they end up running 94 dogs in it and had 4 dogs handled. Now, I promise you that flight of dogs wasn't any better than the ones we brought. The deal was the wind didn't blow a puff that day, the second day. The wind was the entire deal. So maybe I'm sure she thought all them dogs had been trained every day in the water. Bullshit. The deal is the conditions are what gets it. Clouds, wind, everything. I mean, but I'm telling you now that where the sun is, I've run tests that every dog goes out for 3 hours. No dog goes out the next 2 hours, and then every dog goes out the next 2 hours. It's all about the wind, the sun, and it's just awful how the environmental factors go into play and what draw you have on your dog as far as where he runs. And understand another real negative about the Grand is that on dog, when you start, I don't even know who's first out of our group. I hadn't even looked. But Jobman is. So he's dog number 1. What every series we go to, that poor dog right there is going to run dog number 1. That's not a good draw, especially in the first series. There's no trails, the cover's not beat down, there's no scent, there's no nothing. So you're out there with raw. I mean, it's as tough as it gets. If you look at the stats on the first 10 to 12, 15 dogs at every Grand, that they're going to lose half those dogs in that first 10, 12, 15 dogs. And then after that,
not the dog's fault. It's not the dog's fault.
See, I remember one time we ran down in Texas, down at Sawdust Ranch, and they had a crimson clover field. And I remember Boomer was the first dog to run, and he literally ran out and stepped on every bird, but he would stand there with his head down in the clover and rooting around in the clover and stay there for 30, 45 seconds and never move out of his tracks and come out with a bird. We lost dog after dog after dog after dog after that. By the end of it, you could have took a dog that was forced to a pile and forced him down these 3 trails, and then there was this big flat spot out there because that clover all got beat down, and that bird was sitting there like a beach ball laying on the beach. I mean, there was no way to miss it. There was no way to hide it. So that was completely environmental, and that was the worst test I've ever seen about that. Who didn't think, hey, maybe this clover's going to get beat down later today? I mean, and then second series, third series, fourth series, they barely lost anybody because there wasn't any cover. There wasn't any way to hide a bird out there. So we get some of that too. Now, Bo, they don't have any of that. And tell me about the cover up there. What did you see up there as far as the last couple of weeks?
Grass isn't overly tall in their fields, but it's good enough to hide birds. Their water is their typical running water. Come on now. So their water is starting to get grass. So it's sticking out. I was in one area that it had a lot of trash floating out there in the water, and I'm gonna be honest with you. When a dog looked out there, everything looked like a duck. They threw a really nice middle long mark for us, and I seen plenty of dogs run a long ways off a line to a clump of something that was in the water that looked like a duck. When you were sitting there dog height at the line and looking out over the field, there was 30, 40, maybe more objects out there that looked like a duck laying out there. That's going to be a tough area to run in. Yeah.
I'm going to back up just 1 second. Chris, you said it. You nobody could say it any better than what you said about, standing. If you take a dog to the Grand, the clients need to understand that dog has already made it. It's made it. I can't stress that enough. I'm not, well, I don't want to go back all that way, but I can't stress that enough. That was 100% right. 100.
So is it safe to say that if a dog is good enough to run in the Grand, it is a world-class dog?
100%.
Oh, no question.
Right.
No question. Top 1% in the world. Of all all the retriever breeds, top 1% in the world. Because you got to think most retriever breeds aren't playing this game.
Yeah.
So it's a top. But then that banded water in Chirac, that went down as statistically the hardest Grand Series in history with the pass rate and what handled on that.
And that judge.
That was tough. It was tough. That big wind came off of that water, and I guess we just need to train harder in the water. I don't know what to tell you. Just train harder, Chris.
I'm not really picking on Carol, but she's tough. That Grand and then even the last Grand, we didn't get her series at the last Grand. The Lord's blessed us on the last Grand. That series ate them alive too. That series was huge. It was big. I had a huge memory bird, all that. Let's talk about that. That's something, Elliot, that you may or may not know. So nowadays the Grand's gotten so big. How many series we got this time, guys? 8, 10? How do you look? Everybody know?
Flight?
No. How many flights?
10? We have 10?
Let's say there's 10. Let's just say there are 8 or 10. If there is, so Group A is going to run series 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to run 5, 6, 7, 8. And so we're running completely two different Grands. So if you get the wrong judge and you get the wrong test, well, you are in trouble. There is a lot, and I tell people all the time, like Chirac, if you didn't run that test, don't even tell me about your green ribbon. I don't even want to hear it because you didn't run at the last Grand. We can say the same thing. Yep. Stats prove that Carol's test at the last Grand was very difficult and ate them alive. We had a lot of some water tests that I didn't think were Grand level water tests. They judged them Grand level, but the tests themselves, marks and blinds, I think we can all agree probably weren't as tough as what that one that she ran was for sure, from what I heard and saw. So there's that's the only negative about the Grand I have, that the Grand that Joe Blow runs versus I run can be two different things, 100%.
Yeah, so is it the same same set of judges every single year, or does it switch up?
No, they switch up. And so remember, each site you go to has a different set of judges. So we only see those two judges on that particular test, and then we move on to another test with two judges there. Kind of different from any.
A lot of them are probably similar, and some filter in and filter out. You know most of the judges when you guys get there?
We know most of them.
Yeah, and they're very well coached. Tracy and them, they do a great job. They drag these judges to the side. They have a complete seminar, I guess you'd call it, and they coach these guys. Look, this is the most well-oiled machine there is. What's amazing, understand, Elliot, too, this is what's always amazed me. They set all these tests up, and they don't change one thing. They don't move a decoy. They don't do anything. Everything's exactly the same 100% of the time, and the stats always end up within 5% of each other at the end every single time. So the talent that this team has on how to set tests up, how to judge dogs, how to score dogs is absolutely incredible across the board. It has been for years and years. My hat's off to them for the time and energy they put into this. They've been working on this thing for 12 months. They've been working on this, night and day for the last 2 months. This is an event that is a disaster to put on, and Tracy and his team do a fantastic job with it, and you don't want for anything the whole time you're there. Those site marshals are insane. They're there at 5 a.m. They stay till 9 at night. They make sure everything's consistent, everything's the same. all the birds are impeccable. All the bird boys are there on time, and it is a well-oiled machine. It is a very tough event to host and put on.
You're 100% right. How they do things is incredible. It's absolutely insane.
And I'll say this: I feel like the Master National could learn something from them.
I think both venues can learn.
Go ahead and say that.
I think both venues can learn something from each other. But as far as time management goes, the Grand, there's nothing come close to the Grand. There's
Nothing, not even remotely close.
No, not at all. But I want you guys to think about something before we end this episode down the road here. Think about if you had one little nugget of information that you could do for somebody running the Grand or training for the Grand. Think about one little nugget from everybody here that they kind of need to know, or it's a skill that they have to have in their back pocket to help the dog get through this whole deal. So you guys just think about that. We'll come up with it down a little bit later. So, but I think the Grand has changed a lot for the better. I mean, I think we all can agree with that. Back in the day, boy, it was tough, but I think it's still tough. I think it's changed a lot. I think the tests are different. They're a little bit. I think the land tests are a little bit bigger than what we've seen in the past. I think. Eric,
are your adrenaline levels? We'll start with Eric. Are your adrenaline levels different at the Grand than at a regular weekend test? I would assume that it's a different. And how do you control not conveying that energy to the dog?
At the Grand, I mean, I've got to the point at a weekend hunt test. I mean, it's pretty easy for me to walk in there and stay pretty calm. At the Grand, it's still pretty nerve wracking. You walk out there with your dog in front of everybody. You have no friends. You're standing out there by yourself with your dog, and everybody's watching you, and there's no friends. So yeah, I still get nervous at the. What's that?
We're not friends. We're not friends.
Yeah.
We're not friends.
We're all there together.
We're there together.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, regardless,
You're on your own. You're alone.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah,
So it still gets to me. Don't get me wrong. Being around this group is good. There's a lot of experience with this, especially both Chris's in this group that, and don't get yourself wrong. Akin will snatch me coming off line and say, hey, man, I'm to the right of this tree or I'm to the left of this tree. Or, Jobman does the same thing. We all share that information with each other. And I think that helps, us younger guys get through the Grand. And maybe we see something too. And, it's something that we share with, the Chris's or whatever. And, they may not listen to us, but it doesn't matter, But, yeah, I can. It still gets me nervous. Don't get me wrong. It's the Grand. I mean, it's the peak of what we do. You want to do well. I want to do well at the Grand. I want to pass my dogs. I want to do well in front of my peers. I mean, there's some peer pressure walking up that line in this group, and they're not easy. We're not easy on each other. That I can promise you that. So, Rhett.
True story. Yeah, I take a lot of flack.
But Eric's right though. We our group is really, really tight, and when you wake up in the morning, it's like you're getting ready for a dogfight. It's a different mentality than a weekend test. It's a different mentality than the Master National. It's almost like us against them. And when we get there, I feel like we kind of rally the troops and we circle the wagons and. It's us against them, and I know Chris and I do it all the time. Where's this bark land? It's in line with that tree right there, and this bark's right here in that bush, and how you gonna pick this up? How you gonna pick that? We do a lot of talking back and forth, and we'll help anybody in our flight. There's only 10 or 11 of us in our flight, but we'll help anybody. We want everybody to pass in our flight. We want to have a very successful flight, but it's the nerves are definitely part of the deal.
Yeah. How do you guys figure out in your week where you're doing your training who does the setups and how much debate and argument is there over the daily setups?
Eric and I usually set everything up, And Chris stands at the line on his phone and says it's the dumbest thing he's ever seen, and Rhett's looking for biscuits.
Yeah, I say I'm probably not even there yet.
That's seriously how it works. And he rolls in like 10 o'clock. Hey, look, guys, I found Chick-fil-A 100 miles away. And he's like, what are we doing? He's like, I'm running singles. Let's go. That's
in the background said chicks.
Honest to God truth.
Yeah, that's about how it goes.
Or we'll tweak it here, we'll tweak it there, but it's we all train kind of a lot alike, and so we see a lot of the same things when we set our setup up, but usually it's Eric and I involved running around setting up the equipment, Chris telling us where to put it. That's basically what we do, and Rhett's usually not even there.
Jobman, you've told me you like making things on a month-to-month basis harder. Your setups are harder than what you see in your average like HRC finish test. Is that the mentality you guys go into with the week before? Do you try to make it even harder than the Grand or try to match it, or what's the philosophy with the difficulty level?
Rhett, go ahead. You start.
I feel like our focus is not as much on the difficulty of our setups as far as the mechanics of everything. Our dogs are already trained at that point. Now we still set up good stuff, but I mean our focus is making sure the dogs are prepared to get to the line right and sit there right, watch their birds, all that good stuff just as much as anything. We bring the dogs out in the order that they're going to run. Our first dog is our first dog. Our last dog is our last dog, because that's how, like we were talking about earlier, that's how it is. Every series you run your first dog first. So, we keep them in that same routine and are focused on just our mechanics of getting the dog into a routine of doing it every time, because that's what keeps them consistent there.
Yeah, I've started running my dogs in my order. Have you guys started running your guys in your order?
No, I haven't, but yeah, that's I probably should.
So that's what we do.
Is the order random, Chris? Is the order just random, or can you pick it? Is the order random?
No, it's random. It's random. And so my dog, my first dog is Preacher McGinn, Tiffany's dog, and that's my first dog. So I have my grand running order, and I've looked it all up. I'm running every one of my dogs in that grand running order, because when we throw our first bird in the morning, that is what Preacher's going to see. No scent, the dew on the ground, off we go. And so he's dog one every day, and it's harder. So he's running dog one. That's how we do it all the way through. And we'll have like a running order, and depending on who your honor person is, they can make or break it too. Huh, Rhett?
I've really come a long ways.
There's a story here. What is it?
If you're Rhett's your honor dog, it's a bad deal. Chris, explain it. I want to.
So we were running a big triple, and one of them was a field, no home blind, it was just out in the middle of the field. And whenever they had an honor dog and they shot that bird, they threw that bird out first. And if I remember right, it was a center, left, right. And when they threw that bird, I would shoot, and then the honor dog also shot on the first bird out. Well, if you went like Jobman and I have it down to a science. It's like you can't even tell that the gun goes off. Well,
19 years of doing it, we have it down.
It's not that hard.
Well, you synchronize the shots.
Don't brag on it.
The shots
that hard, huh?
You synchronize the shots. You mean you shoot at the same time?
It's not that hard. Jobman actually, we discuss this all year long. It's not that hard, but it is for some people. So when with us, we shoot and it goes pow, and literally 3/4 of a second to a second later, then the dog turns and looks to see what he's shooting at, and then the next mark comes out over here to the right or left, and then he's missed that mark, and then you come right, and the dog's like, I missed it all. I didn't even see that. I saw the first bird, I didn't see the second, I barely saw the third, and I saw the fourth, but there's only 3 birds. So now the dog's running out there like a lost. It was so bad, Elliot, that the judges told me, they said, Chris, you've got to go back there and talk to Rhett. He is killing your dogs. And I'm like, I don't know. So I went back and told him, if you do that to me again, I'm going to bloody your nose right here in front of God and everybody. He was so scared that he wouldn't even shoot the gun after that. But I mean, I lost like 3 dogs because of that. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. And since then, we practice it a lot and we coach him a lot. And we're trying to get his meds right, during the event. We hadn't talked about that. We were trying to get his meds right during the, pre-training. That's really why we go, Elliot, just to get how many milligrams Rhett needs at these events due to his wife.
I will never forget that, Grant.
Rhett, you want to defend yourself? You want to defend yourself on this, Rhett?
No, not a whole lot I can say.
No, he just wanted to pass more dogs than you. He had made a bet. I bet you I will pass more dogs than Chris Akin on this event.
Yeah, I don't. I really want to see him talk about it. The attorneys are still probably working on that. I don't really know. It was awful. It was awful. But he has done. I'll tell you, you're a little better. You're a little better. So.
I think Chris pretty upset. I've seen Chris pretty upset over the 19, 20 years of it. I tell you, that day, Rhett's like, "Boy, I made him mad." I'm like, "Hey, damn right you did. I mean, you better get it shit together." And he was so riled he couldn't even pull a trigger. It was unbelievable.
It was like the fourth.
It was the fourth series. It was the fourth series, Elliot.
Ouch.
For fourth series.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing. I hope anybody that's putting the Grand on listens to this. I mean, I think we all can agree. If you have an honor dog and your first bird out is 165, 70 yards, that honor dog shouldn't be shooting that bird or anything like that. Just because if you have an honored person that shoots at the wrong time, you're hosed, and they shouldn't be involved in this thing. I think the people listening that are setting up these Grand tests, hey, don't make it so the guy shoots at a bad time that he misses that mark. Make it on a shorter bird.
And then I'll even add something else to it. So on those honor deals, if your dog goes out and then they had you go over there on the honor bucket, now your dog's on lead. Okay. Now the site coordinator, great people, hardest working people you ever met in your life. Now they're handling the gun and you're handling the dog and the leash. Okay. Well, that guy, he may or may not know what to do with the timing of the gun, and he can get you just as much as somebody like Rhett that was doing it horribly during the honor deal there. And I've seen that happen multiple times. Not bad as Rhett did it, but bad, just. But it was
Rhett.
Rhett. It's bad. There's a lot of weight goes into that timing on honor. You got to just understand, you can only handle on one mark at the Grand out of 4 series. One mark. You can't give up any of them. I don't care if they're 20 yards belly up. You can't give that mark up. You've got to get every one of them, and that's the problem. I mean, that's the stress and the pressure. Like at the National, man, they let them hunt, and they'll get backside of the gun. They come back, figure it out, and they come on in. At the Grand, that dog gets on the backside of the winger station. They're telling you to put the dog on the bird, regardless if that dog would have came back around here and got it. They don't care. They know that because the objective is the dog to leave the retrieving line, go directly there to the fall, establish the hunt, retrieve the bird, and return back to the handler without aid from the handler. So they got you right there in that paragraph. If that dog's not directly there to the fall, they say, "Hey, Chris, put the dog on the bird." That's the worst. That's the worst thing you can hear all week. I mean, it's horrible because we've seen it time and time again where the dog's making his good loop. He's fixing to come back in there, get the wind right, and pick the bird up. They say, "Hey, put your dog on the bird." You're like, "Dude, give me 1 second here. He's fixing to pick it up." They don't care. Once they've said that, you basically handle. And we've all pulled every trick we can. Hey, we didn't hear you. Hey, I can't find my whistle. Hey, whatever, and let the dog do. They don't care because they've already told you to handle, so it's over. They know all those little stupid tricks. They've seen all that before, and so it's just the stress level, that whole deal. And you asked that question about what one little thing you could give, and it's a good time to add that in because my deal is is that I tell people every weekend now, and I've learned this from doing this for years and years and years. Everybody acts like this is their 401k or their child's health or somebody getting into college somewhere special. This same dog is going to pick up every duck that owner kills. This dog's going to run every mark and every blind he wants to train to it. If that dog doesn't pass the Grand, I'm just telling you, it's not that important. Of course, it's important to the client. He's spending a lot of money, invested a lot of money in his dog, but at the end of the day, just relax as a handler, relax as a trainer, because the dog's already won just being at in an international level event. Just take the ride in, do as well as you can. But man, like we just put way too much pressure on ourselves on this thing, worrying about every little detail. And I promise you, nobody's losing their 401k or their investments over the Grand. It's just not that important, you know. And we all want to do well, and we all want everybody. Because the worst thing in the world is in the evenings when you got to make that phone call and say, "Hey, she went out." You know, man, the dog went right in there. They told me to put her on the bird. You know, she missed the other bird by 3 feet, and then she ran past it. They told me to put her on, so she's out. Well, the dog didn't do anything horribly wrong. The dog made great stabs to every mark, just missed them a little bit. Wing wasn't up. It was hid in the edge of the water, half sunk. I mean, we've all had bad birds. We've all had this winger threw another 10 foot versus the last bird. I mean, it just happens. It's nothing negative against the dog just because the dog doesn't pass the Grand. I promise you.
So let's move on to Chris. Jobman had mentioned everyone giving a tidbit about the Grand, and Chris Akin gave his there. Let's move over to let's do Rhett, then Eric, and then Chris Jobman. I don't figure out how Jobman phrased it. One tidbit, one piece of advice, one thing about the Grand.
One little nugget.
Rhett?
Nugget.
I think this goes back to something that the other guys said, and something that Chris Akin and Jobman both told me a long time ago. And I brought it up, I think, in the last podcast we were talking about. I was talking about how we were training and what we were doing, the setups we were doing and all, and they telling me, hey, this is how we train every day. This is what we do. This is nothing new. I'm not doing any more pressure now, any less pressure. I'm training the dog in front of me, and I'm doing that for months before, all the way up until the day before. Now, like I said earlier, we might tighten up on line manners a little bit and get into more of a routine, but at the end of the day, hold your standard and train the dog in front of you for what your goal is, to have a Grand champion. Don't change anything you're doing. Train that way all the time.
Yeah, 100%. Eric?
We already hit on my little tidbit I was going to give, but I'll rehash it. Get over that gun and have good gun work. Even without the honor dog, it's important. The shooting and the shucking and the moving of the gun over the dog's head, or switching shoulders, or opening up a dog, or closing the mark down or half the field down with the gun. Good gun work will make or break your dog at the Grand. It will let your dog see or not see marks if you do good gun work or don't do good gun work. So that's my little tidbit. You gotta be good with that gun.
What that is huge. That is actually huge. My little tidbit would be, you need to teach your dog however you want to teach a dog. You gotta teach your dog is go as sent, because they're not going to see every mark. You need to line them up, point them off, and kick them off, and go. So you need to build that skill in your dog that if it doesn't see the mark, it trusts you enough to, talk him into that spot and talk him into going and getting a bird it didn't see, because you're not going to see them all. That's just a fact. You got Rhett shooting on the honor and the dog looking away. You're not going to see them all. That's just all there is to it. And my little tidbit is to teach your dog how to look out there and go a scent without seeing the mark. Chris, do you do anything special when you work on that? That's a question we get a lot. Is how I teach my dog to do that. And I don't do anything special. I just, in training, if they don't see the mark, I don't make a real big deal out of it. We just try to help them out and try to figure it out. Or dead bird back if you need to do that. But do you do anything special? You guys do anything special at all to teach your dog to go a scent when they don't see a mark?
I'll be honest with you. I'm still learning to do that, and I'm working on it really hard right now. But, we just do everything out of order in training now versus what I used to do. Used to, we throw 3 marks, 4 marks, and just go get them. And nowadays, we throw a mark, no off of it, run a blind, come back, and they almost have to rely on you because it's just too mental not to, because you're having to, and everything's in a 180-degree deal. So they really learn to point and shoot. And some dogs are way better at it than others, obviously, but we're constantly working on it. I mean, constantly. And I'm still a student of that game because I hadn't always trained that way. And I've got Scott with me that is really good at teaching that. And so he's working with me on that because it's definitely a work in progress for sure.
I think it's a major skill to have. I mean, because you always say it the best. You got them dogs that are, what do we always say? You got, this dog is like rhinos. Rhinos are a fantastic dog. He's one of them dogs I always think about. Like this dog, you always say this dog's got. He's real optimistic. You're real optimistic.
Yeah.
Like you got some of them dogs that you can talk in the spot. They're like real optimistic. Okay, there's a bird there. Then you got the other dogs that are a little bit. When they don't see the mark, they get nervous. So you got to really be careful of that. But some dogs just optimistic. Eric, what do you do? Do you do anything special for that, or?
I mean, everyday training. I don't get flustered if a mark doesn't end up where it's supposed to be, or my dog didn't see the mark. If I'm running a multiple, I play it like you would just as a test. Hey, it didn't see the left mark. It does see the right mark. I go pick up the right mark and I talk it into that left mark. Sometimes we all have used the words peekaboo. You might have your gunner go out there and peekaboo. If you're using wingers, you might quack it or something to get the dog's attention out there. It's all about getting that dog to believe, to be optimistic that there is something out there, and you send it, and hopefully that starts building that skill where the dog will run out there and trust you that something happened out there, whether it's that little quack that gets its attention or that gunner goes out there and peekaboos. It doesn't even say anything, or it does say, hey, and no throw. So it's just about building that skill of getting that dog to run out there and put on a smart and intelligent hunt, finding the gunner or understanding the concept. Sometimes, there's a corner cutter. If you face a dog over there on that corner and it doesn't know where that mark is, it should still understand the concept of doing the corner cut. So get in, get out, and look for your bird. So that's just it's an everyday deal, what we do.
Yeah, we do it all the time too.
Can I add something to the little tidbit thing? Because something I've seen through the years. A lot of times we'll have amateurs come up and train with us. We'll have a young pro come train with us, and what they'll do, because they're at the Grand or they're in Grand company as far as people with Grand dogs, and I think those people will change their standard, or they'll change the way they train. And let me tell you something, you're not going to change that dog in pre-training in 4 days or 5 days or whatever it is you got, 2 days or whatever. You do you. You do. Don't let somebody change you. Don't let somebody, whatever. Rhett's really good at that. And
That's Rhett's motto.
I've seen Rhett. Jobman and I'll be out there throwing a triple, no one off of it, run the blind, making them pick up the birds we want in order. And Rhett's line is, it's only a problem if you make it a problem. Well, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful deal. You ought to have a T-shirt that says that. Because Rhett will run singles, and he'll go to Taco Bell or to Chick-fil-A while me and Jobman are over there puking behind the truck trying to poison bird triple, So keep your standard. Don't change because now all of a sudden you realize you're at the Grand. Don't change because you're around people that train a different method. You do you. You do what works for your dog. You obviously done well to get to that point. Man, I watched this kid one time that trained with Barry Lyons, and he wanted to be Barry Lyons. I remember this soul, and I won't throw his name out there, but Barry's a great trainer, and Barry's got tons of grand champions, and Barry's he has his own training style. Well, this young pro decides he's going to start training like Barry does that week because that's the way Barry made all these grand champions. Well, that guy does that week, and when they threw the triple in the first series, his dog no-go the entire triple and didn't even pick up a bird. I promise you that his dog would have got 2 or 3 of those marks if he'd have just kept his standard. If he would have just trained the way he always does, that dog would have been fine with the whole thing. But because he changed it, I see that all the time. And we really encourage people that train with us, like we've always got 1 or 2 guys that train with us, to take notes from Rhett and learn how to do it because it's. I mean, we've had marks before in the setup where you got to jump a log or a stick, and Rhett say, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. That stick's like 3 inches tall and it'd be hard, and so we're just not going to do that." And he doesn't. And him pass just as many as any of us do at the Grand, like he always does. And so
I get it.
You got to learn how to do that, and it's very important. And whether he does that with pharmaceuticals or whatever he does, that's good. But it's definitely a quality thing that has. So I'm going to check with Rhett. I'll give his email here in a minute, and you can check in with him.
Hey,
doesn't it work for him, and he does a great job.
I want to stick something on the back. I want to stick something on the back end because in this group, I'm probably the new guy.
You do.
Yeah, thanks, bud. Chris makes you make a really, really good point because we've all seen this, and I think maybe both of the Chris's here have forgotten how long they've been doing this. We get some new guys in there, and they are intimidated by running with the Chris's. Heck, I mean, my first couple of years, it was like, hey, my dogs in pre-training have to go dog for dog, mark for mark, blind for blind with both of the Chris's. We have all these grand passes between the two of them. I want my dogs to be that good. And Rhett Rhett is that asset to the group where he's taught everybody, don't make it a deal if it doesn't have to be. And that's a hard lesson for young guys or inexperienced guys or guys new to our group to understand. You're not going to have dogs that run marks the same way Chris Akin's dogs do. They may not run marks like Akin's dog does or my dogs. You've just got to be comfortable with the work that you've put in leading up to that Grand, and don't tear them down in pre-training leading up to the Grand, just like Chris said. But being the new guy, it is very intimidating. You get into one of these new Grand groups and you feel like you got to fit in. You feel like your dogs have got to match their dogs. Like Chris said, don't get rid of that idea. Stay true to yourself and true to your training, and be positive with those dogs and go in there with confident dogs. I'm sure this whole entire group will agree. Going in with a confident dog into the Grand is much better than beating that dog up and trying to nitpick it right before we get there.
No truer words have been said. If your dog is going into the Grand and it's mentally beat down, you're going home. There is no doubt about it. And I think people, the Grand isn't like it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, your dog was 2 feet in front of you, beat you at the bucket, you're going home. Or if it creeps just a tiny little bit, you were going home. And Chris can attest to that. Back in the day, it was tough. And now they're letting your dog move around a little bit. And they're letting your dog hunt a little bit more. They're letting your dog be a dog now. And you don't see, back in the day, you saw a lot of Grand dogs that looked mentally beat down because, everybody concentrated on line manners as much. And now that standard has changed a little bit. Now I'm not saying they can bark the line, they can creep all over. I'm just saying, but they can move around a little bit, they can hunt a little bit, and it's not like it used to be. So I think people, they hear the horror stories of the Grand 20 years ago. That's not the same Grand than it was 20 years ago. I think the work's really hard now too, but I think they've lightened up on some of the hunting, which is great. Letting dogs be dogs, and the cream will always rises to the crop by the end of the week. So.
Good stuff. Well,
anybody else got anything? I mean, we could talk about this thing for hours. I mean, there's so much stuff to talk about at the Grand. It's and don't be afraid, everybody. You can handle on more than one mark at the Grand in a week, but you better be in the area. That you can handle in the area the fall at the Grand, and that's something that we as a group have gotten much better at over the years of handling in the area. Don't be afraid to do that either. I mean, I've done it a bunch. I've had a bunch of dogs in the last 5-6 years do it like that.
I think you've done it more than the rest of us. I'm always that guy that has confidence they're going to work it out. And the next thing you know, they don't.
Yeah, I try to handle them in the Grand. You got to be quick, so you got to be on your toes. But it definitely can help them.
Yeah, you're the best I've ever seen at it.
My deal. I woke up 20 times. A little dog named Samson on that little water test where they got behind the bird. The bird was in the water and he's on the bank just running around. I kept saying he's fixing to get it. He's fixing to get it. And next thing you know, he's 25 yards to the right.
And you were in the area 10 times. I mean, you're right there.
Could have handled. And then he'd have passed, and when he handled it was in like our third, and then he turned around and handled on the mark in the fourth, and he was out. He was, he had done a great job, had a great Grand, and I felt like I blew it right there. If I'd have been good about handling that area, and I did handle a couple others in that area on that same bird. I was a quick learner, I guess, because I didn't let it happen again.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It's hard to do at the Grands, blow that whistle. It is. It's like, oh boy, I hope we're in the area. And that's one thing, the Grand judges and anybody listening to that's one thing that's changed over the years for the better. Because a lot of times you can ask them, hey guys, did you have me in the area on that? And they'll tell you, yeah, we had you in the area. Or they'll just flat tell you, hey, we had you in the area on that mark. And which is invaluable information for us. And we can go back to hey guys, here's the area. The area is right here, and so we can, as handlers, we're better handlers when we know that. So that communication between the judge and the handler, letting you know if you're in the area, not in the area, is a huge deal. I think it helps us all.
Yeah, that's your go-to. You handle in the area and you swing around and you ask real quick. I handle in the area and I just stand there and look for it like, oh God, don't tell me nothing bad.
Well, I try to find out, hey guys, but I asked tonight, hey, did you have me in the area? That way I know where it's at, and I know where it's at, and then that way it does. I want to know right away too before I leave that line with that dog, because I don't want, know in my back of my mind if that was a handle in or out of the area, because then that affects how I handle the next dog. I'm worried about it, so I want to know right away. And if they say, hey, we need to talk about it, that's great. Talk about it, let me know. But I would like to know right away to get that off of my chest, get that out of my mind for my next dog. So that's kind of why I do it. Rhett keeps smiling. I don't know why he's smiling. Well, we all know why Rhett's smiling, but
you're just really good at handling in the area. I mean, I'm just impressed by it.
Well, thank you, Rhett.
Yeah, no problem.
My dogs need to mark better is what you're telling me.
No, I mean, I can't. I mean, I saw you handle on that same test that I was screwing Akin up on with Hustler. I mean, it was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. I mean,
so I handled Hustler in that same water pond. I handled him on that water. Because, I mean, you got to handle that dog because he can't smell his own butt. So you got to handle him in the area, but Hustler's good enough to stay in there. You know what I mean?
He's good at it.
Yeah. Good. Now, I mean, that sucker, he'll get in there and root around on it, so you can end up handling him, and he'll let you handle him and all that. So you gotta know the dog too. I
think I handled him. I passed him in that Grand. I think I handled him 3 times.
That was incredible.
In 4 series.
Yeah. Man, I got 2 plates on that dog at the National, and he has wallowed on birds. And the whole time, I wish I was at the Grand right now because I could handle right there and he'd be good,
Yeah.
But they'll let you hunt there. So he'd hunt for literally, I saw him hunt on one little water bird one day for like 6, 7, 8 minutes. The judge was like, what is wrong with that dog? He's right there. I'm like, he's run over the top of it 20 times. Next thing you know, he comes back with it. They're not going to let you do that at the Grand.
No. Anybody else got anything? Any tidbits? Eric, Teson, you got anything?
I'm good.
They say that Alan Sanford made this saying the Grand is not very hard to pass, but it's very easy to fail.
Very. And I always tell
Absolutely.
people that you don't have to have good luck to pass it. You just can't have any bad luck.
That's right. Same difference. Same.
Yeah, same thing.
Same.
Rhett, you got anything for us?
No, everything's got to go right, or the dog's got to be really damn good. One of those two things.
Yeah,
So,
and I think
hopefully
it
you
would
got
help a
both.
lot of people to latch on to a good pro that ran the Grand a lot and has some success, because there's lots and we can talk about it forever, but there's lots of little nuances and stuff about it that you can really help your dog, and you don't really know about it unless somebody teaches you how to do it. And
Yeah.
Chris took me over in his wing 20 years ago, and he's taught me a ton about how to run it, and now we're teaching everybody else, right? So it's in our group's real successful, and we're really proud of that. In everybody's in our group, but I think getting in a really, really good group that supports everybody, and people may not think we're really good friends, but we're about as close as it gets, because the shit talking is bad. It is bad. Don't ever show weakness ever.
Best
Whatever
thing
you do,
ever
don't-
happened to me in this.
Whatever
was
you
being with
do,
this-
don't cry at a test, because if you cry at a test, you'll never hear the end of it. Huh, Rhett?
Yeah, we're gonna bring that up. Anyways, but what I was saying, best thing ever happened to me in this. Obviously, getting in this group and having this group of friends. I mean, it's definitely changed everything for me. Having you guys around, it's been good, and I appreciate the hell out of it.
Yeah,
I've learned a ton and enjoy getting better every day because of it. So even Eric, even you too, buddy. I was talking about you too, Eric. Yeah.
That was disgusting.
Sorry.
That was disgusting.
Well,
Well,
I think we've hit on a ton of stuff. We're at about an hour and 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and shut this down. We're going to be back on the next episode with the same group of guys answering Q&A questions from the Facebook group. So if you're listening to this and you're new to the podcast, you can submit questions or find more content over on the Flatlander Kennels Podcast Facebook group, where we do a lot of Q&As. But be ready for that next episode where we're going to be hitting a bunch of Q&A questions from the group. Chris, what you got?
Guys, I can't appreciate it much. I love all you guys like brothers. You all know that, and thanks for joining us. Can't wait to answer some questions and answers. Thanks, guys. Everybody at the line. Take that aim.
Gotta strike